Okay, welcome back. As we continue on with this illustration and our Paraline drawing, what I want you to do is make sure that you've cleaned up your lines. Hopefully you've had a minute or two to do that. And let's take a look at this form again. Again, we have all four corners. Now this one has been slightly erased, but we know where the corner is above and below, and that's our form. So now we can take a few minutes and we can start to implement all the detail elements, and that's where we're going to spend the remainder of the assignment. There'll be this video will continue to include doors and windows and doors and the porch roof and the porch base, and then we'll take another break here. But I want you to see the methods for doing this. So as we get ready to start, again, I want to emphasize that everything that we are doing is coming from the previous drawings. So importantly, as we start placing the windows on this building form, we're going to use the floor plan down below. I want you to use your eyes, look through the top drawing to the floor plan below. And using the outside line, we're not inside the building, everything is on the outside. So we want to start marking and projecting lines that are represented on the floor plan. So we're going to start with windows. So our first goal is to find the edges of the window on the floor plan and simply put a mark where each edge is. So here's an edge, mark it. Here's an edge for the next window. Here's another edge, so edge, 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 edge. These are the vertical edges. Then we're going to skip over the door. We'll come back to that in a minute. And then we have a window on the corner over here. And for the front facade of the building, that's all we need. We've got 1, 2, 3, windows placed on the front side of this building. We have some other windows elsewhere, but we'll get to those in a bit. All right, so now that we know where they're at, we've placed them on the drawing. We need to project them up. And how high do we project the head of the window up? We're starting at the finished floor. Remember our FF marked right here. That's our measure point. We're going to go up 6 foot 8 inches. So using our scale, we're going to go vertically up from the outside of the intersection of that edge mark and the outside boundary line. We're going to go up 6 foot 8 inches. So I've marked it there. Try that again. Okay, and that goes up to 6, 8. And I put a spot right there, or make a little mark. I'm going to just shoot a line up lightly here. And the reason is, as we saw in the exterior elevations, all the doors and all the windows in a legitimate statement is they're all at the same head height. They all have the 6 foot 8 height. And if you look around your home, you probably will find continuity between all the window heights. And it's because it looks pleasing, it looks organized. Now you can have some specialty windows that might go above and below that, but by and large, head heights generally want to match. So as a result, we have a mark here at 6 foot 8 inches high. Now I'm going to use my triangle and I'm going to project a line lightly all the way across that facade at the same height as that dot was placed at 6 foot 8. So that means I can align every single window and door with that 6 foot 8 head height because it's a horizontal projected line. Horizontals are projected on the 45, just as we saw in the earlier video section. So now it's a relatively simple process. We start at each mark at each edge and we bring ourselves a line down. Now again, don't blast these in. Keep them discernible and observable, but don't press and place them so heavily that they're going to be hard to erase and create confusion for you later. So all I'm doing is projecting from the point that is marked on the plan along the outside finished floor line up to the 6'8". So I'm going to leave the door out for right now. We'll come back to that in a minute. And I'm going to come way over here to the left side, and I have another window over there. Now, what we found is the placement of each of these windows, but we really haven't identified what the sill height is yet. And if we measure off of our elevations here, and or we go back to the handout when we used to find these, I believe we found all of those at 3 foot, indeed we did, at 3 foot above finished floor. So as a result, we're going to go ahead and draw a horizontal line at 3. We're going to mark the first location here on the same right side. We're going to measure up 3 feet. 1, 2, 3. And that's where that is. I'm going to measure that again. Just want to make sure. Better to be safe than sorry here. So 1, 2, 3. Yep, that's correct. Okay, so draw a line across each window at that point. Now, what you've drawn there, and if you erase the bottom portion here, you've got the window opening. And I'm going to go ahead and draw these in a little bit harder, and you'll see what's going on in just a minute. As we do this, I'm making these lines a little bit more prominent. Well, first, so you can see them. But number 2, these are representing the window openings. Now, there's a little bit more to this than you might otherwise observe, and so we're going to talk about that as we finish these up. I just want these windows to have a little bit more graphic emphasis, and so I'm outlining them just a bit more. All right, so there they are, 1, 2, 3. They're in the same location they're supposed to be. They're just projected up from the floor plan. Hopefully, this is a reoccurring theme that we're going to see on every plan oblique. So, the other thing, if you go back to the information that was provided, that we know that these are about 4 inches in thickness, this trim that goes around each of the windows. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Now, where the 2 windows come together, I'm just going to make one single trim piece that goes around that. So let's go ahead and put that in. I'm just making a note. I'm going to skip that one so it becomes just a singular one. I'm going to put it across the top and across the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and draw that in. There's that piece. That piece. I have to spruce that up a little later, but that's fine. Okay, so now I've drawn the trim around both those windows. I need to do the same thing over here. Rather than, I need to measure the left side and the right side, but I do not necessarily have to measure across the top because it's a horizontal line and it should be served by the same line alignment as the previous window. So we're going to get that in just a sec here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and project a line up and a line down. Okay, I'm going to align myself with the trim of the other side. And I'm going to do the same thing down below. Complete the lines. Okay, and you can clean those up a little bit later. All right, so we have all 3 windows with trim around them. Okay, so now one other quick note about windows. As I mentioned in the preview, windows have depth. The glass doesn't sit on the face of the building. It sets back in. So you have to draw that in. And in order to do that, you have to think, well, how far in is it? Well, for graphic purposes, probably 2 to 3 inches is adequate. Just be consistent. So if you do it for one window, do it for all of them the same. So to do that, I'm going to come to the inside edge of the glass, or the window opening, and I'm going to project a line. The line projected back is a horizontal line, believe it or not, so it's at a 45-degree angle. And I'm going to go back 3 inches, just so that it shows a little better. You could do it in 2, and that would be fine. Make sure I get the right mark in the right place. Okay, so I have marked, I've drawn a little 45 coming off this way, and that's going to be the seam where the 2 pieces come together. You'll see it in just a minute, and I'm going to draw a line there. I'm going to draw another line vertically, and then I'm going to join it with that seam line, and now you can start to see the depth. Now you may have to, I'm going to try to draw these in a way that is easy to see. I can do the same thing here, just a little 45. And again, since all of these horizontal lines are parallel and running in the same direction, I don't have to even really measure them again. Although it's probably good for accuracy purposes to make sure that you're not drifting too far. But I want you to see that there's an inside edge of the window. And so now we have depth. Same thing, but opposite will be happening on this side, and we'll touch on that later in the demonstration. Okay, and theoretically, you know, you could come back here and just put a little tiny pop out for the trim. So that it represents that the trim actually has dimension out and the glass is set in. So by doing this, you are simply making the drawing more detail-oriented and more complete. Okay, so now the window trim is on. I've added a little thickness coming away from the wall, and the glass is recessed in, so there our windows are complete. Now I'm going to do the door, and the door is very simple. It is following the same rules we did with the windows. So we're going to project up from the door opening, not the outside of the door, but the actual door opening. And how high? We only have to go as high as 6'8", because the doors and the windows are at the same height. So as I project that up, I can stop right there, and my door head is right there. Now, if you look at your elevation, some of the trim merges again at the door, so we're just going to pick that up and carry it forward. It's a little messy. We didn't separate them all out. I didn't want you doing 2 inches of trim. 4 inches is more adequate for graphic representation. So I'm just going to carry this across like I did before. I am going to measure 4 inches on this side of my opening, just to make sure I have a decent representation of the trim. Okay, so that's where that trim is, and that's the edge of the trim. And believe it or not, the door is going to be set back the same way as the windows are set back, because if you look, your door doesn't necessarily flush out at the face of the building. Okay, so there's the door set back, there's the windows. Just took a couple minutes. So what I did was I used the plan, just like in the windows, lined it up, took it up to the height that's common, which is the 6'8", and then I completed the form. Then I added the trim, and then I pushed the door in, brought the trim out just a little bit. So this elevation is looking pretty good. We have some complicated pieces to come and start on, and so we're going to work on those now in their basic form, and then we're going to break this up with some other information in just a bit. So what I want to start with here is I want to start with the idea that we need the other major piece on this elevation is this porch element right here. And the porch, starting with the easy way, is to start with the porch itself, the platform that comes out from the door. And then we'll do the roof elements when we come back. So as we do this, I want to point out that as you can see, all this is added to the drawing. It is not cut away from it, and we didn't do a massive envelope to try to collect it. We got the basic form, and now we're adding on the elements. So hopefully you're seeing that, and you're seeing a methodology that makes sense. So we're going to put the base on this, and it's pretty straightforward. So the thing that we've talked about is that if you look at your floor plan, the porch floor, for lack of a better term, that pedestal, it projects out from the building and it goes out a certain distance. I can use the plan view exactly the way it is and build this very quickly. Now, how we know how big it's going to be because the floor plan is showing us. As we look here, we can see it very directly, and we're going to translate that. But how deep is it? Well, the porch has to touch the ground, so it has to go as far down as this baseline, and you'll see that in just a moment. So let's start with just simply tracing the boundaries of the porch as we see it on the plan. So I'm just drawing an outline of it. And we'll come in and fill in the other information in just a bit. Okay, so that is the porch at the finished floor level. Now we have to drop it. So how do we find how far to drop it? We just align it with the 3 feet drop that we did at the end of the first video section. So I'm going to do that. I simply brought a line from the intersection of the top down along the face of that 3-foot drop, and as soon as I got to the base, I stopped because now I'm going to project it all the way around. So I could go ahead and put some verticals in. I don't necessarily have to on the backside here. I'll keep it light. But I know that if this is 3 foot and this is 3 foot, those have to be 3 foot also. So let's just go ahead and do a quick little measure. Okay, there we go. That's 3 feet. Check this one. And I think what you're going to find is everything lines up really nicely just by connecting them up on those 45 degree angles. So there we go. We came off this one, 45, didn't shift the angle at all. Do the same thing, going around the block. Now, I'm not going to draw this in really heavy, but I think you'll be able to see that it lines up perfectly with that back corner. So we're good to go. Now we need to lightly erase some elements here, and that so that we don't get confused with what level of the drawing, and we're trying to keep the drawing at the as best as we can off that finished floor line, that original line that we went all the way around the drawing with. So now you can see this is a pedestal lifted off the ground in 3-dimension, and with that I'm going to stop this portion of the video, and we're going to come back and spend more time on the porch and the stairs and the railings, and those are going to take some time, and so we want to make sure that you understand all the added pieces that are put together. So again, take a couple minutes maybe and clean up your drawing so it's nice and easy to work with, and we will be back in just a minute with the next segment of our video demonstration. Thank you and see you soon.